of life and death in sci-fi. For those of you who enjoy my stories, I have an interesting one for you at this time. Indeed, many of you have heard it before. But this story is somewhat different to all my other writings. Indeed, it is my favorite story, though I have written so many. As a matter of fact, it is my first science fiction story. It was inspired by a truly sad occasion, the funeral of a special brethren who lived in Spanish Town, Jamaica, whose mother is one of my dearest friends. I must add too that this is the second funeral I have ever attended, for as a matter of fact, I don't go to funerals. I tend to mourn the passing of acquaintances from a safe distance. But I had to be there for Alan. He was a great young man, full of promise, love, and integrity. He had been an only child who, though he had a girlfriend, never got around to making a baby. He was always putting it off, telling me he was not ready to have children yet. I remember teasing him about not giving his mother a well-needed grandchild, and he would just smile and say, whatever will be, will be. Yes, Alan Ray Fine was a fine young man, a model son, a brilliant human being, a wonderful spirit. And so, sitting in the crowded church at his funeral, with tears in my eyes, I got the feeling to write Alan a story, one that would help comfort those who loved him, one that would keep his memorial intact. Some of you will find this story a bit off the wall. However, you don't know Alan, so I forgive your many critical remarks. Some of you will no doubt find this story ridiculous, stupid, weird, unreal, the figment of a silly imagination. All this is allowed, but it is a blend of reality and science fiction. Yeah, this story in question may be called senseless, different. It is a story about a good man, a funeral, a spacecraft, distant galaxies, weird planets, unusual sexual vitality. This story will make you wonder what had gotten into me to write such a ridiculously fascinating narrative. This story may tempt you to turn off your sound system if you're hearing it on a sound system, or turn off your radio if you're hearing it on a radio, and stop listening to the rubbish you hear in this story. Yet, you will be curious to hear what will be said next in this story. Now, this story was read under a tree, on top of a bridge, in a schoolyard, in 3 restaurants, in the hot boiling sun, in a shower of rain, in my mother's house in Barbados. It was typed by my secretary at my office in Ocho Jamaica. This story was read to my children, to my neighbors' children, to a group of old people, to a set of half-drunk fishermen one Sunday morning on a beautiful Negril beach. This story was read while serving ice cream at a party among playful children. This story was read while cooking my Sunday dinner, while driving my car on a bumpy village road full of potholes in St. Mary. This story was ridiculed by my secretary, stolen and copied by one of my untrustworthy friends. This story was actually read on Radio Jamaica many times, and some people loved it. Some never understood it. This story is wanted by the police. A certain superintendent who keep asking me when next I'm going to read it on the radio. And so I am tempted to read it again, this time setting it straight so that you can, if possible, enjoy it. This story may be read at 1 o'clock. Yet you'll be remembering this story at 3 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, 2 days from now, a week from now, a month from now. Still, I don't know what all the fuss is about. For this story may never be found among great literary works, never be published in children's school textbooks. It certainly won't be compared to any hymn in a church prayer book. It probably won't even be found in an old man's scrapbook or in an old lady's pocketbook. No one may even care to ask me how much time it took for me to write this story, or what kind of a look Alan's mother, Juliet Dunbar, had on her face when I visited her and read to her this story. Still, I can tell you, it is worth the bother. For my friend Juliet loved this story, and she knew her son Alan would have enjoyed this story. So now, without any further procrastination, I would like to pay tribute to my sister-in, Juliet Dunbar, Alan Ray Fine's mother, over there in Spanish Town, Jamaica. And now, the prologue. Here goes. Alan Ray Fine could not believe his eyes. He was attending his own funeral, hearing what his relatives, co-workers, and friends were saying about him. Then, watching his dear mother, grief-stricken, as she finally collapsed into the arms of Titus, his best friend. Titus himself was trying to be strong, fighting back the tears. But the grief of Alan's untimely passing was unbearable. It was getting to him fast. Bertram Solly was there too. He is a next-door neighbor who knew Alan very well. They often played dominoes together, sometimes for hours and hours on end. They both joined the Jamaica Fire Brigade the same day and were both moving swiftly up the ranks. Given a special funeral with military honors, Alan was moved to tears of appreciation. The words of the fire chief impressed Alan very, very much too. He had no idea the chief was so impressed with his daily performance. Now, Arlene was on stage. She sang Alan's favorite song with a trembling but beautiful voice. She was in tears. She read an impressive account of Alan's achievements, which accompanied a slideshow of photographs in the background on a large TV screen. Pictures of Alan taken since childhood, up until a few days before his tragic accident. Arlene is Alan's first cousin. She adored Alan. The good Pastor Batson finally preached a very touching sermon. Alan's girlfriend sat next to Juliet, Alan's mother. She wept constantly. Sandra wanted to give Alan a baby with all her heart. Alan was his mother's only child. He never knew his father. Alan wanted a child too, but he thought that Sandra should finish her medical degree first. Now it is too late. Too late. Alan is gone. Gone too soon. And the pain is simply unbearable. Why did Alan have to die so young? Why did he leave for work half hour earlier that fateful day? And why was two idiotic bus drivers racing so early in the morning on a wet, slippery road in Kingston City? Why was Alan the wrong place at the wrong time to get run over by a bus? Everyone was asking, why? for everyone had a question of his own. Meanwhile, Alan was receiving answers. He was getting them fast. A voice was speaking to him, a voice he quickly recognized. Alan was looking down on us all. He was smiling broadly. He was about to board an invisible spacecraft called Zion. She is a galactic wonder. She is an unidentified flying object of absolute magnificence. A craft totally invisible to the human eye and inaudible, silent to the human ear. A machine 4 miles long and 3 miles wide. Alan's Earth programming was now being peeled off by the spacecraft's automatic deprogrammer. And Alan was suddenly reminded of his true nature, his true purpose in life. Now, his true identity has returned to him. He suddenly remembered that he is the Crown Prince Zargoth, the second in command on the planet Tarshish, with a population of 250 billion people, 150 light years away from planet Earth, with a most unusual atmosphere, where the elements of wood, fire, and water do not actually exist. These elements are actually imported from Azula, an Earth-like planet 7 times the size of planet Earth, with 3 moons and 2 suns, where half the inhabitants, both people, animals, and plants, are male for the first half of every year and female for the second half of the year. The Azulan year consists of 36 Earth months. Alan, now conscious that he is the great Prince Zargoth, wished that Earth was closer to home. He would have liked to monitor Sandra's progress in life and even handpick a nice brethren to father her children. My lord, we had to cut your journey on Earth short, sir. Came the familiar voice again. It was the voice of the executive high priest Ikubi. Sir, we had to resurrect you quickly. We had no choice, for at home there have been a development. Your father, the Emperor, His Royal Highness King Zaugard, is gravely ill, and he wants to see you urgently to pass on the reins of power, which is yours by birthright. By this time, planet Earth was long out of sight, a tiny star in a distant galaxy, like a grain of sand on a 7-mile-long Negril beach. Now the captain of the starship arose and addressed the Crown Prince. Your Royal Highness, I am sorry your death was so sudden and unpleasant. Your Highness, we had the option to make it happen suddenly and without warning, for the code was in place. Remember, you were born on the 22nd day of the month, and 22 is the number of ambush. And what about those 2 men who drove the 2 buses? Asked the prince. Oh, that was easy to arrange, said the high priest. Remember the Detesso twins? Detesso? Asked the surprised prince. Those 2 idiots who boasted about their maneuvering capabilities and challenged me to a life and death race through the deadly quasar? Those idiots who tricked me into entering a black hole in space and then alerted the hostile reptilians to my position on Saturn's smallest moon and caused me to lose almost half of my crew? Those same ones, sir. But remember, Your Highness, every story have 2 sides. As I do recall, you did bad drive them and cause them both to die. That is why they had the universal authority to kill you. They were, in spite of their disgusting ways, 2 brilliant and promising young minds. A whole planet mourned for 7 long years because of their passing. They were sent to Earth by the magician Sargoth, their granduncle, to destroy you. 5 times since childhood, we saved your life from their assault. Who do you think those 2 schoolboys were who put gramazone poison in your porridge when you were only 14 years old? And why did you think you fell and broke your arm and spilled the porridge that killed that poor dog? Those same 2 spirits that entered those 2 school friends of yours are the same 2 spirits that occupied those idiotic bus drivers, encouraging them to race and drive like madmen. We chose not to save you this time because your father needs to see you urgently. Now you have paid your debt, sir. to the bloodline of the Detesto twins. Congratulations, sir. Take your mind off Earth at this time, Your Majesty. We shall send a holographic image of you through the dream portals to your loved ones on Earth to comfort them from time to time. But, Your Majesty, your 3 beautiful wives and all 26 of your wonderful children are now at the skyport awaiting your arrival. Prince Zargov checked the ship's Akashic logbook. He was amazed. The great Michael Jackson was on board, along with more than 200 famous musicians he had heard of while living on Earth. They were all being transported to their respective planets and galaxies. Michael Jackson was somewhere on the ship, but the prince knew he would never recognize him, even if he met everyone, as no one looked as they did on planet Earth. Some had 2 heads, some even had more. The prince himself did not resemble Alan at all. The fact that he now had 3 eyes and 2 penises was a minor aspect of his originality. He remembered the Earth's Holy Bible and the teachings of the great avatar Jesus the Christ. He would recall what he had learned and record those teachings in the great Tetragrammaton, the book of all books. He could enlighten his people. The trip to planet Earth was a major success as far as he was concerned. As he peered through the logbook, the prince learned that his earthly mother, Juliet, was Tonga, the emperor's chief chambermaid. He understood now her mission. For Tonga was from an ethnic subclass who are not allowed to bear children while working for the royal family. He now recalled that she was planted on Earth within a baby body 28 years before his arrival. His father was Thutmose, one of the emperor's good friends, who came to Earth only to donate sperm for his body's creation. And Sandra, his earthly girlfriend, who he had grown to love dearly, was actually Milena, his childhood sweetheart from the Nordic sector, a place that is beautiful, out of this world, and a place where shadows simply does not exist. Every moment, therefore, is a Kodak moment. For no picture taken on Earth can rival or compare to any photograph taken in the Nordic sector. The Nordic sector mountains are dotted with villages where all women have 3 breasts that never ever drop and with 2 vaginas. He recalled that while sexual ejaculation lasted a mere 3 seconds on Earth, ejaculation in the Nordic sector lasted 15 whole minutes. And so, sexuality in the Nordic sector leaves one with a juicy memory indeed. He remembered his sojourn there as a youngster, when his planet's headquarters, the Golden Pentacle, was attacked by reptilian Vulcans and their friends, the organic cephalopods, who decimated his home state of Kalagi and almost defeated his father in the great battle that ended in a peace treaty, for both sides lost considerable power. This treaty, followed by the subsequent sharing of ancient cellular phone technology, turned out to be of great galactic significance, especially on planet Earth, to modernize and globalize that naive and backward planet. The great prince smiled again to learn that Bertram Solly, his earthly neighbor and good friend, was the chief palace gardener sent to watch over him by the emperor. Pangazi, the gardener-in-chief, had formally applied for an Earth experience visa in order to learn patience and tolerance, two very valuable attributes in palace life. Pangazi had a bad temper, which he knew had to be fixed. Maybe that is why he studied and mastered in human psychology. Oh, and by the way, let's just happen more. The teacher who was so strict and who taught Alan philosophy was none other than Ovina, Prince Zargov's godmother, the Grand Vizier of the Order of Zook, from the planet Isimar in the Pleiades galaxy, 8.5 light years away from the twin planets Chinelli and Chiniqua, where huge, powerful, fire-breathing dragons exist. This is the original home of the Oriental people, Chinese and Japanese races, respectively. Before traveling to Earth, the Great Prince had spent a short lifetime of 37 years in Kedar Kilib, the home planet of the Indian race and Hindu religion, where the inhabitants are beautifully cultured and colorfully dressed and have 4 hands each. A highly spiritual and meditative realm, where the element of water is 7 times more powerful than water found on planet Earth. The Great Prince thought to himself, I wonder if Mama Juliet knew all these things, if she would still be so sad and depressed today, and if she would still bother to cry. I wish I could still talk to Sandra, but I know that would only scare her to death. Someday, when her Earth life is over, I will explain these things to her. Life within itself is a surprise, sealed with a host of other surprises, good, bad, and ugly. Prince Zagoff, while in the personage of Alan Ray Fine, was so surprised when a bus ran over him, so overwhelmed with horror, sadness, and pain. But as he traveled skyward, it all became clear to him. He remembered his arrival on planet Earth. He was rudely awakened from a deep galactic sleep. As he made his entrance through the Stargate, his beloved mother's vagina, he was greeted with great violence. A figure held him upside down and beat him with a wet towel. All he could do is scream. Now, with his new Earth life degree, he is fully qualified to lead his people with wisdom, for he had managed to lead on Earth an exemplary life. Earth, of course, being the living library of the known universe, the practice pad of all great galactic rulers. And most of all, he thanked his mother Juliet Dunbar for her diligence, her kindness, and her impeccable discipline.